Now, as the 2023 presidential race gathers momentum, presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, says he will prioritize national security, economy, agriculture, power, oil and gas, transportation, and education if elected in the 2023 general elections. Well, Asiwaju Tinubu has also outlined policy options for healthcare, digital economy, women empowerment, judicial reforms, federalism, decentralization of power, and foreign policy. The former governor of Africa's the most important state in the country, that's the governor of Lagos, that's the center of excellence, yes, Nigeria's commercial hub, has been applauded by many Nigerians around the world for laying the foundation for the state to strive. Ranking the 5th largest economy across the continent, the APC's presidential candidate is also promising huge investments in entrepreneurship, sports, entertainment, culture, youth empowerment to expand jobs and opportunities for millions of Nigerian youths. But let's really understand the practicality and actuality of all of this and dissect the priority areas contained in the Renewed Hope 2023, the action plan for a better Nigeria manifesto by the former governor of Lagos. Take a listen to the former governor of Lagos and the presidential candidate of the APC.
We must target, and we will, I assure you, target growth at very least. We must achieve GDP growth of minimum 6%, if not 10% per annum. Promote agriculture. We shall continue to press reforms in the sector that will increase productivity, improve farm incomes while lowering food prices, and bring enough food to the table of ordinary people. Power. Nigeria, I am determined. They are Nigerians. I am determined, I repeat, to give you the affordable and reliable power you need to drive your businesses in a way that lifts the entire economy and ordinary person.
Well, my guest is a senior special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari, Public Affairs, who is also the assistant spokesperson of the ruling All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council. It's Mr. Ajuri Ngulali. It's good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Ngulali.
Good afternoon, my brother, and good afternoon to all of our viewers.
Good. I want to start this way. Let's do an overview. Yes, I know this could take some time, but to know where we are with regards to issues like ease of doing business, addressing poverty, of course, increasing our gross domestic product, which is part of the promises that we are hearing now. Where are we, and how do you see this transition or continuity, if it happens, moving us to where we should be?
Thank you very much once again. I think first and foremost, it's important to recognize that we are currently operating within a global economic environment that is faced with several constraints. We are seeing around the world rising rates of inflation almost uniformly across both developing and developed countries. We're seeing rising interest rates, rising rates of unemployment, challenges around the increase in global energy prices as occasioned by the Russo-Ukrainian conflict. There are a lot of challenges, obviously, with supply chains and logistics, etc., affecting the movements of goods and services as well. It's been very problematic. Of course, Nigeria is not exempted from that. And we are very mindful of the fact that our people are confronted by the increasing cost of goods and services in the country as a result of some of these factors. So it's with empathy that we are very clear with our people that things are going to get better, and things would be a lot worse if President Muhammadu Buhari had not taken the proactive steps he took to fundamentally restructure the nature of our economy away from these sectors that are not labor intensive, such as oil and gas production, for example. Even though obviously we're investing and it's still a sector that's on the come up, we've shifted our attention really to the labor-intensive sectors. Most Nigerians are aware of what we've been able to accomplish in agriculture, where we've been able to put over 1.2 trillion naira in the hands of over 3 million farmers, giving them seedlings and supplements that has enabled a situation that has allowed us to massively substitute our imports, where we were paying $3-4 billion a year for rice before. We can now dedicate those scarce foreign exchange reserves to budgetary supplementation and the like. So we've achieved quite a bit. I think the question really moving forward, and I think Nigerians, as you mentioned, are well aware of what we've accomplished in ease of business, MSME capitalization, separate from farmers. We've put over 1.5 trillion naira in the hands of millions of micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises at single-digit interest rates. This was something that was impossible before 2015, and obviously over 12 million Nigerians benefiting from social investment programs, aside from the massive boom that we'd seen in construction year on year as a result of our massive investments in roads, bridges, airports, seaports, power plants, dams, and the like across this nation. With all of that said, we still have work to do, which is why His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has been very clear in his plan of, while giving due credit to President Muhammadu Buhari for laying a successful foundation, we're going to now build on that foundation with a series of measures, including really what's going to be the establishment of, I think, what might be the centerpiece of the Tinubu administration's economic reform in the country, is the establishment of a consumer credit we have for decades been asking innocent Nigerians to buy a house with money up front, to buy a car with money up front, to pay a year's rent up front. And of course, that would tempt them to move to seek out incomes outside of their legitimate incomes. So what the consumer credit system is going to bring to the table is it's going to enable a scenario where tens of millions of Nigerians will be able to access a home, a vehicle, large domestic appliances such as freezers and refrigerators without being forced to pay all the money up front. How is this going to work? First of all, in housing, we're going to immediately, and this is going to involve millions of young people constructing homes across the country, we're going to immediately work with the new 10th National Assembly, once it's inaugurated in June, to reform the Land Use Act to standardize all of the timelines and processes around land access in our country. We understand that that is a constitutional prerogative of the state governments, so we have to work very closely with the state governments to ensure that we end the current scenario where in Lagos State you might be able to, from the time you get put in your application to the time you actually get your C of O, it might be a month or so. In another state like Kogi or Rivers or a different state, it might be up to 6 months. It might involve paying a bribe to the State Ministry of Lands and all of that. So we want to standardize that process so that it's the same across the country, number one. Number two, which is very important, is we're going to be offering developers, these are housing developers, incentives such as tax rebates, tax credits, and other grants and forms of incentive to enable them to devote as much of their new development away from high-rise buildings and condos and mansions for rich people into social housing, where we can construct 10 million naira valued homes for low-income Nigerians and middle-income Nigerians, civil servants and the like, so that they can have access to their own homes. The third and final level to this, which is very important to understand, is we're going to be working with the Central Bank of Nigeria, because we recognize that you can't just construct a whole bunch of homes if you don't have the financial architecture to be able to offtake those homes. So you have to have a buyer in order to pay the labor that's going to continue constructing these millions of homes across the country. So at the third level, we're going to be working with the Central Bank of Nigeria to create a series of incentives for the deposit money banks in this country, which include enhanced interbank settlement offers, better functioning, or at least enhanced monetary policy ratios and the like, to incentivize them to create a bulk percentage of all of their lending for lending to the real sector, for lending for home mortgages, for lending for automobile purchase through lease to own, for lending for the purchase of large domestic appliances such as refrigerators and freezers. We want to change the living standards of our people, and we believe that the establishment of a consumer credit system in this country that is based on your legitimate income, where if you're making 300,000 naira a month or 100,000 naira a month, you can take your employment letter and your bank statements and all of the documents required to the bank in exchange for a mortgage that will allow you to affordably make a payment monthly until you own the home within the means of your legitimate income. That's something we're excited to bring to the table. That's something we believe is going to be revolutionary. And then the last point is in agriculture, because you mentioned agriculture. The way we're going to be building on the Anchor Borrowers Program and many of the other successful interventions of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is we are going to engage millions of young people, not just in the farming once the land clearing program is done, but in the land clearing program itself. Right now, my brother, we have a situation where only 35% of all arable land in this country is currently under cultivation, meaning 2/3 of all arable land in this country is currently lying fallow with no productivity attached to it. We want to end that. And so the man who will be known as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by the grace of God, by May 2023, is promising Nigerians that by the end of his first term in office in 2027, he will have moved through a massive land clearing exercise across this country, that percentage of 35% of arable land under cultivation to 65% of all arable land under cultivation by 2027. Obviously, you're going to create the jobs during the land clearing exercise, but most importantly, we're going to be mobilizing these millions of rural Nigerian youths who are physically capable, who are talented, to be moving into these cleared spaces, into these arable lands, to start their own farming businesses and industries. That's how we create employment on a mass scale, and that's how we create more taxpayers, more banked Nigerians with bank accounts, and a larger pie to ensure that we're able to effectively meet the needs of our nation in terms of revenue generation.
All right, there. You've taken me across some sectors there now. Agriculture, there, credit, consumer credit, and all, increasing productivity among farmers and all of that. Now, let's talk about some bills that have become acts now, fully laws now, just like the Startup Bill, Finance Act introduced by this government, KAMA, and the big one is the PIA, which everyone will talk about the implementation of this to the latter, so that we can attract the kind of investment that we want in the oil and gas space. For me, I believe we really need to do that. And one of it is the subsidy issue and all that we grapple with. What do you think would happen in 2023 to address issues in both the downstream, midstream, and upstream of the oil and gas industry? It's very important to address that, please.
Absolutely. And thank you for raising the question. Look, the oil and gas industry is central to our economy. And even though His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, as well as the man who we believe will be his successor, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, are both committed to diversifying the nation's economy, as we've seen in recent years. One of the things that is absolutely true is that we owe it to our citizens to maximize the benefit of the oil and gas wealth that we have, to really expedite that process of diversification, but most importantly, create wealth for the entire country. And one of the ways that we're going to be doing that is first building on the foundation where you have President Muhammadu Buhari massively investing in the $2.8 billion Ajaokuta to Kaduna to Kano gas pipeline, which will eventually form the base, the foundation for the Trans-Saharan Nigerian gas pipeline, which will, for the first time in our history, carry Nigerian gas out of the Niger Delta across the Sahara through the Algerian gas pipeline network into Western Europe, which obviously therefore creates billions of dollars a year in new gas-related revenues from the international market. That's a foundation laid by President Muhammadu Buhari, one that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is absolutely committed to carrying forward. The same with the expansion of what will be the extension of the West African gas pipeline through the new Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline that will offer another revenue-generating opportunity passing through all the West African states in the Atlantic Ocean, all the way up to Western Europe into Spain. So there are many opportunities in gas that this administration has laid the foundation on, that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu will build upon. In addition to that, we have obviously, we've worked assiduously on gas production. We are obviously Train 7, NLNG Train 7 is at an advanced stage of construction. That will be completed by 2025. His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is committed to consolidating on that. But most importantly, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is also looking into making sure that we hit the ground running on Train 8. We don't want to wait until Train 7 is concluded before we get into Train 8. We want to massively expand our gas production and transmission capacity for wealth generation for the nation. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, in terms of oil production, when we talk about the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, this is obviously one of the landmarks of this administration, an act of law that could not be done for the last 22 years because of the corrupt collusion between actors in the oil and gas sector and corrupt Nigerian politicians in the legislature and the executive over the various decades. Fortunately for us, President Muhammadu Buhari, with his trademark integrity, has done that. Now, the question is about how do we take advantage? One of the major ways is we have massive new deep water investments that are coming on stream as a result of the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has been very clear with Nigerians that by 2026, per day. That's number one. And that number two, by 2030, we will have increased our oil production up to 4 million barrels per day from the 2.6 million barrels per day in 2026. So he has very clear targets. He has a very clear pathway in terms of meeting those targets. And Nigerians can expect that they're going to see more benefits from the oil and gas industry than they've ever seen before. Now, you asked the question about subsidy, which is extremely relevant. Obviously, in view of the global and domestic economic environment within which we're currently operating. One of the issues is His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has been very clear once again with Nigerians on his plan. He is going to remove the fuel subsidy. There is no equivocation. There is no doublespeak about that. He is going to do it. It is obviously an economic imperative that we free up what is ultimately around between $4 and $6 billion in a year of revenue. When you do that year on year, you're talking about funding budgets. So that's going to be important. Now, but what's most important to His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is also to ensure that even as he does so in the most responsible and empathetic manner, because ultimately he cares about the welfare of our citizens, and he wants to ensure that he does not inflict any kind of shock or additional harm to them. So what he's doing is, number one, we're going to be responsible about the timing, but number two, the mitigation factors for the low-income and middle-income Nigerians who rely heavily on the cost of fuel where it is today. We are going to massively expand our mass transit systems, not just in Abuja or Lagos, but across all states of the Federation. Not just by providing the infrastructure in terms of the buses and the like, and making sure that they're running on cheaper fuels like compressed natural gas, which will also do a lot for the economy in terms of off-taking the domestic production of gas. But also, it's going to provide even cheaper transportation methods for our people than what they're getting now with subsidized PMS. So that's going to be very important. In addition to that, we have to now be very clear with Nigerians that even though Shore P, that was attempted implementation under President Goodluck Jonathan, and Nigerians saw that turned into a big bazaar, a big fraudulent enterprise where they were just enriching themselves and cronies. We now have to obviously raise the trust of our people by showing them very transparently how we are going to reinvest the resources being saved by the removal of the fuel subsidy. That is an imperative. Determined to do so that Nigerians will know exactly where those resources are going and how it's going to benefit their lives in a very direct fashion. And we believe that given his record in governance in terms of how he has been able to raise the standard of living in had across sectors and how it's thriving across sectors today, that when he says what he says, he's one candidate in this election that can actually deliver it, unlike those who are promising the moon, but when they had an opportunity, delivered nothing.
Okay, Ajuri, if you can hear me, let's wrap up with power, the power sector. A lot has been done after privatization.
Absolutely.
Now we are having the private guys coming in to run the discos. The transmission end is still there, and we have issues. How do we intend to improve generation to help businesses?
Thank you very much, my dear brother. You know, the truth of the matter is the power sector is one in which the major challenge is not so much with power generation.
Yeah.
We currently have a generation capacity in this country of 8,000 megawatts. But what our people are usually receiving in their homes and businesses has ranged between 3,500 and 4,500 megawatts, meaning we have so much stranded power, right? So our focus as an administration under President Muhammadu Buhari has been about how do we ensure that those distribution company owners, which should have never had the assets in the first place because they've proven a fair measure of incompetence in their handling of the assets post-privatization in 2013, how do we make up for their lapses by assisting them with the investments they require now to stabilize their ability to effectively receive and distribute the power into the homes and businesses of Nigerians. And that's where President Muhammadu Buhari's Presidential Power Initiative with Siemens comes in. Fortunately for us, we've already received 10 massive distribution substations from Siemens as of last month. And by March 2023, we'll be receiving another set of 10. So that plan is very much on course. The payments have been made, and we're very happy with the progress of that plan. Fortunately for us, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is a visionary who understands that in governance, you take the very best of the policies and programs of the previous administration, and then you modify the others where needed. This is one program, the PPI, that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has already committed to seeing through to its conclusion. He believes in it, and he's going to build on that. So for us, that's very key. So once we get the quality of power dealt with, it's one thing to talk about quantity of power, but we're committed to also ensuring that we have quality power, which is stable currents across the federation, predictable currents, and all of that, so that we're not spoiling the appliances of Nigerians, we're not messing up their equipment because of a lack of qualitative power. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, my brother, and a major part of power in other sectors is manpower. His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is guaranteeing a total reform of the education system in this country by putting together a special presidential committee on education that's going to bring together, really for the first time, captains of industry, heads of manufacturing firms, heads of construction, heads of ICT, business, and banking, and all the others, to basically have them directly inform the development of a new national curricula that our children will be studying in their schools, so that when we reel out our graduates at the end of their education, they will not just have a certificate, but no skill sets. They will have a certificate, but they will have a corresponding skill set that is uniquely designed and tailored toward the unique needs of businesses that are operating in the 21st century, so that even if they're not employed by those businesses, they'll have the skill sets to start up their own businesses and turn into entrepreneurs. This is the future of the Nigerian economy, and we believe that vocational and technical education is going to be a critical part of that by developing a blue-collar workforce with 21st century skills in robotics, in design thinking, and software development without going through a four-year institution. This is the economy that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to build for this country.
Interesting way to live it. And I must tell you, Ajuri, we're going to have a part 2 of this discussion because we need to take other sectors and understand them, just like you've made us understand other sectors that you've explained to us in this interaction. I've been speaking to Assistant Spokesperson of the ruling All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Ajuri Ngolale. He's also the Senior Special Advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs. Thank you so much, Ajuri. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege.